Welcome to Modern Life is Goodish. My name is Dave Gorman, and I'm here with my big screen and my little laptop, which is a good job, because what I do is essentially a double act, and they, the screen and the laptop, are essentially my partner. The odd thing about being in a double act with a computer is that it means I have to deal with a very different kind of heckle. I get software heckles. If you don't believe me, look at this. At Dave Gorman. PowerPoint presentation at such and such a venue is a fraud. He's using Keynote. For those who don't know, Keynote is just a different presentation software. But imagine caring about which one I'm using. Imagine being the kind of person who can watch it in action and confidently declare that you know which one it is. And imagine being that confident and also being wrong. It's not Keynote, it is PowerPoint. And he's not alone. This chap has taken a photo of the closing credits to a previous episode where you can see that it says the show is written, performed and PowerPointed by me. And that is a fair assessment of what I do on the show. I write it, perform it and PowerPoint it. I'm also responsible for making up verbs on the show. For some reason, there isn't a credit for verbicating. I inquirified about it, but it seemed to awkwardate the conversation. To be honest, I'm not sure they even compressed a word I was on about. Anyway, he's taken that picture so that he can twiddle his little wax moustache, feel a bit superior, and add the comment, but Keynote is not PowerPoint. Well, he's right. Keynote is not PowerPoint. But he's wrong, because this is PowerPoint, which you can see if I open up the bonnet and show you the workings for this slide right here. Look, there you go. That is PowerPoint, that is. Yeah. It's all gone a bit Inception all of a sudden, hasn't it? Yeah. If you're watching, mister, I've taken your tweet accusing me of not using PowerPoint and made it into a PowerPoint slide and stuck it in my PowerPoint. All right. Yeah. You, my friend, have been Inceptionized. Anyway, this is what I think of as being my double act partner. Long before I even owned a computer, I was working with a projector screen. I just used to use slide projectors instead. This is a small sample of my old collection of slide projectors there. Now, younger viewers might not understand what they're looking at there, so let me explain. In the past, we used to use things like this. We would shine a light through something like that, and it would cast an image onto a screen. And over the years, I built up quite a little archive of these. In my attic, there are approximately 40,000 photographic slides. I bought them at car boot sales and house clearances, and that became my personal photo library. Basically, in the days before I owned a computer, that was my equivalent of Google image search. In the olden days, like, say I wanted a picture of a fox to go into a show, I used to go into my attic and root through 40,000 pictures until I found a picture of a fox. And I was bloody good at it. Let me tell you, I always found what I was looking for. It's much easier now, obviously. You type the word fox into Google and it shows you a selection of pictures. But although Google may be quicker than me, I think I am still better than Google at some other parts of the process. For example, I am better than Google at rejecting images that are not foxes. Google, not so fussy in that regard, I find. I'll give you an example. This is a genuine screen grab of what Google showed me one day when I asked it to search for images using the word fox. What the hell is going on there? What the hell is that? At first glance, what you've got there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 foxes at first glance. At second glance, it's actually 9, because that is a picture of a fox as well. I know. On top of your 9 foxes, you've got 3 Fox brand logos. You've got 1 car, although technically I suppose you could say that that is a bit of a car in there. I'm not sure it's enough of a car to count as a picture of a car, but if it's counting as a picture of a fox, I guess it also ought to count as a picture of a man, so paired up with its next door neighbour, that means it's got 2 pictures of men on that screen. And on top of that, you've got 31 pictures of women, most of whom are Megan Fox. Well, thank you very much, Google, for assuming I'm a huge Megan Fox fan who can't remember the name Megan. Imagine if people were as indiscriminate as Google is. Imagine if beagles were this indiscriminate. They'd have banned fox hunting years ago, wouldn't they? Now, I've got this collection of 40,000 old slides in my attic. And while I don't use them in my shows anymore, they are still objects that I treasure. I think these things are kind of beautiful. The colours are different. I've worked out recently you can scan them into a computer, so I can share their charms with you digitally. Now, most of my 40,000 strong collection came from car boot sales, house clearances. I've no idea who the people in them are, but about 20, maybe 30 of them are from the Gorman family archives. That is one of those photos. My dad took that in 1973. I am the little boy in the blue dungarees and the red T-shirt standing up on the right of the picture. You just have to kind of take it on trust that that is me. You can't really zoom in and see enough detail with human eyes on that screen. If I zoom in, actually, you should be able to see it is clearly me. It's obvious, isn't it? It's obvious when you zoom, it's obvious. It's obvious when you got that, but most of the people in the pictures in my attic are just strangers. I've got no idea who they are. And when you look at the age of these people and consider how old the photos are, you begin to realise that what's in my attic is essentially 40,000 pictures of dead people I never met. Feels a bit macabre saying it like that, but that is the reality. And I feel a bit guilty sometimes when I go through them because these photos shouldn't really have come into my possession. It feels a bit voyeuristic, and it's not just voyeuristic because one of the photos is of Adolf Hitler cutting his birthday cake. It's not just that. It's not just that. It's voyeuristic because these are real people and they've lived real lives. And like, she's looking at me accusingly in a kind of, how did you get this photo? I've been wrestling with my conscience. I've been trying to find a way of taking the guilt away from this experience that I treasure, and I think I've worked it out. Now that I've turned some of them into digital images, I can do something that takes the guilt away. All you've got to do is that. It's all gone now, isn't it? It feels absolutely fine. How did this happen to us? When I was growing up in the 70s and the 80s, in sitcom land, which is where I look to for all my guidance, we as a society had decided that the most boring dunderhead on earth was the character who spoke like that, who'd just been on a holiday and then made all of his neighbours come and sit on the Velier sofa while he ran them through a slideshow of his holiday, saying, this is Brenda getting on the ferry, and this is Brenda getting off the ferry. And the whole world accepted that expecting other people to enjoy your holiday photos made you a terrible human being. Scroll forward 30 or 40 years, we don't go round to their house and do it. We sit on our own sofas, we open our own laptops in our own time, and we voluntarily subject ourselves to the same bloody slideshows. Nobody's making us. How did that happen? I'm sitting at home just flicking through some. My wife's walking behind me saying, who's that you're looking at? I don't really know. It's the sister of someone I was at school with, I think. I'm not really sure. Well, stop looking at them then. I will in a minute. They're in Alicante. They're having a lovely time. What's happened to me? I love some of these photos. I love this family. I'll take the guilt away. Don't worry about it. There you go. It's all gone. It's all gone. I love this photo in particular because of the other photos that I brought with it, I know something about this picture that you don't yet know. That is Christmas. Oh, yeah. Yeah. The past really was a foreign country, ladies and gentlemen. That is Christmas. But I can do things to these images now, now that they're digital, I couldn't have done when they were on the physical arm of a slide projector. Now they're digital, I can animate them. I can turn this photo into an advert for alcohol. Just imagine that what is in their glasses is your tipple of choice. Watch what happens when they knock one back. Hey! That's more like it, isn't it? That's more like it, absolutely. Don't spin it back, you'll ruin the effect. Go on, get it down, you have a good time. Although, please, ladies and gentlemen, I've got to say this, don't drink too much, especially the ladies. Ladies, please don't drink too much or you might turn into a man. Please. Go easy, please. Now, as fond as I am of this family, they're not my favourite people in the entire collection. I guarantee that you have a friend who does exactly this thing. Every time a camera is pulled out and pointed at them, your friend, he or she, will lean at a certain angle. They'll pull a particular face. They've got their Facebook photo pose worked out. My favourite person in this entire collection, ladies and gentlemen, had his Facebook photo pose even before Facebook was invented. Every photo I've got of him, he does the same thing. If a camera was pointed at him, I think his left hand must have automatically reached out to lean on something for security. We call him Mr. Leany Man in the Gorman household, and we love this man. Often he leans on a car, as you can see there, and also there. Sometimes it's a caravan, obviously. As you might expect, railings figure very highly. There's a lot of railings. Walls, they're the go-to, Leany-wise, aren't they? Of course they are, absolutely. He even does it sitting down. I love Leany Man. I love this fella. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for a break. I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Modern Life is Goodish. My name's Dave Gorman, and if you're familiar with the show, you'll know that every now and then I tell you a story that involves me getting up to some kind of mischief. It might be registering myself as my own lookalike with a leading lookalike agency, or creating an impossible online pop quiz in order to prove a point to a friend, or simply changing the language of some toy cars in order to bamboozle Mrs. Gorman. I wasn't necessarily doing these things with the show in mind, but if you think about it, it's also obvious that I put them in the show because they panned out in a particularly show-friendly way. Sometimes things don't pan out the way I might like. Sometimes mischief goes wrong. When that happens, I just don't put it in the show, obviously. But tonight, I thought I'd tell you the story of one of the ones that didn't go the way I intended. It concerns the website StarNow, OK? StarNow bills itself as the UK's #1 talent website. And it's any talent they're after. Actors, models, musicians, all wanted. And it doesn't matter whether you've ever done it before, no experience is required. So someone who's never done any acting before can suddenly go, I think I'm going to be an actor. They hand over a small amount of money to create an account, and then they get access to all of the ads on the site and can apply for any jobs that come up, potentially turning them into a star. Now, that might be anything. It might be acting jobs, it might be modelling jobs, it might be dance jobs, and so on. The reason it caught my attention was because I love the magazine job section. Surely in the magazine section, they ought to be saying, are you a writer, a photographer, an illustrator? Could you help us get the magazine together? At the very least, you think they'd be saying, are you quite handy with a stapler? But no, those are not the talents required to make a magazine, according to this website. No. Been to Newquay for a weekend and it ended badly? What sort of talent is that? Having a bad time in Newquay? This is the talent they're looking for in the magazine section, a talent for having any of these things happen to you on holiday in Newquay. If you've ever had your drink spiked in Newquay, get in touch with this journalist. If you've caught the clap in Cornwall, drop them a line. But only if you've got good pictures of your sexually transmitted infection. As you can see, you can earn £150 for boasting in a national magazine that you got the clap in Cornwall. Imagine going to the doctors and he says, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is that you can earn 150 quid for a photograph of your disease-ridden cock. Oh, sorry, that was the bad news as well. Sorry. Oh, and there's this as well. Sympathetic pregnancy or PMT symptoms with their partners. Gents, if when your partner is pregnant, you had any of these symptoms, get in touch with this journalist. They want to hear from you. If when your partner is having a period, you have any of the symptoms of PMT, get in touch. They want to hear from you. As you can see, great fees are being offered. And they are indeed great fees. We are talking 250 knicker, ladies and gentlemen. And feel free to have some fun with the story, eh? 250 quid, have some fun with the story, eh? Am I alone in seeing those two sentences at the end of this and thinking, this is essentially a journalist saying, are you prepared to make things up? Go on. Doesn't have to be true. I'll give you some money if you make it up. Go on. I think that's what's going on. And I know I'm supposed to be outraged at that, but I can't help thinking, yes, I am prepared to make it up. Yeah. For 250 quid, I will absolutely make something up, tell it to a journalist and see if I can get in a magazine. Of course I bloody will. So I signed up to StarNow. But I thought, if they know what I do for a living, they're not going to fall for it, are they? So I changed my appearance for the website, OK? That's more or less my appearance as you might see it today. Certainly, just after a haircut, that's kind of what I look like. I tried a few different looks just to see if I could find something that looks sufficiently different. And I think I got something. I think that works. Anyway, with that whole new look, I signed myself up to StarNow, OK? I've given myself a fake name. I'm not going to reveal that to you here. I don't want you lot tracking me down on StarNow. And with looks like that, I have called myself a model and an actor, OK? And to show my range as an actor, I provided a variety of photos on my profile page. There they are. There. So, having done this, I basically started applying to every single magazine job ad that I could conceivably reply to. Just say, yes, it happened to me. Can I have some money? Yes, I have been a bit itchy since I got back from Cornwall. Yes, I have. Yeah, now that you mention it. But here's what I mean when I say things don't always pan out. I don't know what I was doing wrong, because normally I'm quite good at this sort of thing, but I couldn't get a single journalist to take me seriously and put me in a magazine no matter what I tried. So no, it didn't work. And at the time, I admit I found that quite disappointing. But of course, I'm telling you this for a reason. When one door closes, another one opens. Sometimes I work at home, sometimes in my office, sometimes I work in other people's offices. So late one night, I was at home, and I apply to 15 or so adverts on StarNow just before I go to bed. Next morning, I get up, I cycle across town to a meeting at a production company. They've got one of those fancy schmancy hot desking systems going, you know, the sort of thing. Anyway, I've arrived early, so I've got a bit of time to kill. I'm in this big room, lots of people on their computers doing their own thing, but there are a couple of free desks. So I sit down at one of them thinking, I've got 20 minutes before this meeting. I'll just see if by any chance somebody has come back to me on one of those adverts I replied to last night on StarNow. So I go to the StarNow website, expecting to type in email address and password and log in, as you normally would, to my account. But I didn't have to do any of that. I just opened StarNow, and it immediately sucked me in as if I was already logged on to the site, which freaked me out a little bit because I'd never used this particular computer before. How does it know it's me? And then I realised it didn't think it was me. I wasn't logged in as me. I was logged in under the name Liberty Bell. And Liberty Bell is the name of the television production company that makes this show. Without meaning to, I have tunnelled under the fence of StarNow. I've gone from being a punter, someone who can only reply to other people's adverts, and I've become a media company who can put adverts of their own on the site. Tempting, isn't it? Some would say irresistible. I will tell you whether that mischief worked out later in the show. I'll see you after the break. Welcome back to Modern Life is Goodish, ladies and gentlemen. Before the break, I was telling you how I found myself in a promising position to create some new mischief, and I will come back to that later in the show. But right now, I need to tell you about another kind of tricky situation I found myself in recently. I'm sure if you're a couple, I'm sure some of you will have had this kind of conversation as well. Sitting at home one day, and Mrs. Gorman says to me, if you were allowed to nominate one person as an allowable one-night stand, who would it be? Huh? Who is your fantasy shag? And I said no. Absolutely not. We are not opening this can of worms. I'm going to say this, Mrs. Gorman. You are my fantasy shag. I am married to my fantasy shag. That makes me a very lucky man indeed. Now, please, let us move on with our lives in a happy, onward direction. And she said, oh, come on. It's just a silly conversation. It doesn't really matter. Just tell me who it is. I don't mind. There must be someone. All right, then. If you're going to box me into a corner, Megan Fox. No, that is not the reason that my search results look like that. It is not. If anything, the search results look like that because Mrs. Gorman has been doing some intensive Megan Fox research since we had this conversation. I said Megan Fox because I thought it was the most tactful answer to give to Mrs. Gorman. Allow me to explain. This is Megan Fox. I am not for one moment claiming that Mrs. Gorman and Megan Fox look alike. What I am saying is this. If you had been mugged by Megan Fox and the police came to you and said, can you please describe your assailant, sir? And you didn't have the presence of mind to say, describe her? It was Megan bloody Fox, officer. If instead you said, well, she's slim, she's Caucasian, she's got red lipstick and long dark hair, then you would have just described Mrs. Gorman. That doesn't mean they look alike, it means they share the same big, broad descriptors. If you had very bad cataracts, you might think that that was Mrs. Gorman. But let me explain the reason I thought it was a healthy, loving message to send to Mrs. Gorman. If this is a chart describing all female sexual attractiveness, then every woman could be placed on this chart somewhere, and it would show you how sexually attractive they were deemed to be by society at large. The more attractive you are, the further out at the edges you are of this wheel. So, for example, some people might say that Kate Moss is the most beautiful woman on earth. For other people, it might be Naomi Campbell. For others, it might be one of the Nicoles, Kidman or Scherzinger. For other people, it might be Rihanna, or it could be Scarlett Johansson, or, of course, it could be Megan Fox. These are all people who exist at the outer limits of what society has deemed to be sexually attractive. That is why they are out there at the rim of the wheel of beauty, the edge of the wheel of sexiness, the wheel of foxiness. Not, of course, to be confused with that wheel of foxiness there. Different wheel of foxiness. Don't get those two confused. Now, they're not alone, these particular women, are they? Lots of other people exist at the outer edges of the wheel. Of course they do. But it's fair to say that most people don't. Most of us are nearer the ugly hub of the wheel, aren't we? But what I was doing in code for Mrs. Gorman, when I said that Megan Fox was my fantasy shag, I was saying to Mrs. Gorman, that is the spoke of the wheel that rings my bell. That is the line of approach to my fantasy. And you are right smack bang on target. If you extrapolate it to the furthest reaches, you arrive at Megan Fox. But you need not be jealous or enraged by that knowledge, because that person's beauty is not real. It's a Hollywood construct. It's photoshopped. It's airbrushed. That level of Hollywood beauty is simply not attainable in real life. And so you, my darling, have no need to be enraged, offended, upset, or jealous. That's what I was saying in code. And I think that is a loving, coded message to send to one's darling wife. But your reaction tells me that you disagree. Your reaction tells me that some of you are thinking, no, it is a very dangerous thing for any man to ever confess that there is anyone he finds more attractive than his wife under any circumstances whatsoever. And you know what? You're wrong. This conversation did go awry, but not for the reasons you might be thinking. It went awry because, having said that, I then had to, by contract, continue the conversation by saying, so pray tell, Mrs. Gorman, who is your fantasy shag? Do you know who she said? Do you know who she said? Paul Hollywood, that's who she said. Paul fucking Hollywood. He's older than me, he's greyer than me, he's chubbier than me. What kind of yardstick is that, for crying out loud? And as I said before, this level of Hollywood beauty simply isn't attainable. Let me tell you, this level of Hollywood beauty very much is. You don't need an airbrush, you need a pastry brush for that one. He is on a completely different spoke of the wheel to me, isn't he? That is not encouraging, is it? That's how bloody attractive I think he is in the wheel there. All the people beyond that on all the spokes of the wheel are now a threat to me, aren't they? He's a threat, they're a threat, all of these people are threats. I pass 50 people that good looking on my walk to the tube station every bloody morning. How is this not meant to be a threat, for crying out loud? She said, look, it's not about his looks. I mean, he's all right, he's got a bit of a twinkle in his eye, but it's not about his looks. It's about baking. You know how much baking means to me. It's my passion. He's the best baker. Oh, really? Now I'm shitting myself about Mr. Kipling as well, thank you very much. Is every man with flour on his fingers a sexual threat to me? Is that how this works? She said, I just said Paul Hollywood because I like baking. I know why you said it, but it's meant to be a fantasy shag, not a fantasy relationship. It's not about compatibility and sharing hobbies. I didn't pause to consider whether or not Megan Fox plays darts, did I? It's supposed to be a one-night stand. It's not supposed to be you and him baking a Battenberg together. Nobody's fantasy one-night stand involves anyone waiting an hour to see if it rises. She said, look, I know, you're right. You're absolutely right. But it doesn't matter, does it? I mean, he's not real, is he? I mean, I know he's real, I know he exists, but he's not real in our lives, is he? He's not someone I interact with, is he? Oh, he's not, is he? Is that what you think? You don't interact with him? Look at this. Oh, what do you think, Paul? 8-strand plaited loaf. I'll tell you what I think. I think you are flirting with your fantasy shag before my very eyes. And that is not just flirting, that is bread flirting right there. Not just bread flirting, that is bread that is ribbed for her pleasure flirting. It's meant to be someone who's like me, but hotter than me. That is the game we're supposed to be playing. She said, you know what, you're right. You're right. Forget Paul Hollywood. I've got another one. All right, have you? Right, OK. Go on, then. Who is it this time? Do you know who she said? Richard Watcham. Richard bloody Watcham. And you are right to ask yourselves who. You're absolutely right. Because you do not know who Richard Watcham is. Because Richard Watcham is just a bloody friend of ours! He's been to our house for dinner 5 times! And he's never coming again, I'll tell you. I'm not proud of what I'm about to tell you, In fact, I feel a bit uncomfortable telling you this, but now, when the Great British Bake Off is on, I find I have to sit next to Mrs. Gorman on the sofa, just so I can sit there chipping away at Paul Hollywood. Don't like her watching it alone in case she starts to fall for his charms once more. It's not a good habit, but it's an easy habit, because he's got his flaws, hasn't he? You might not know this. He went off to America to make a version of the show over there, and he had a fling with his American co-host, which led to all sorts of monstering in the British press, as you can imagine. It really did. There it is in the Express. The Mirror was saying that divorce was on the cards. The Mail, they completely mauled him over and over again. As it goes, they did actually manage to reconcile for a few years, but I'm sad to report they have recently announced that they are indeed splitting up. But, oh, the reaction this story caused in the Bake Off community was somewhat special. The below-the-line comments were something to behold. They really were. I take the words I find on topics such as this, I turn them into something that I like to call a found poem that I would like to perform for you now. This just goes to show Hollywood by name, Hollywood by nature. Hollywood, my arse. He is from Merseyside. I love him. I love his eyes. He has nice eyes. I want him. Why should I read this story? I don't even know who this man is. But am I alone in thinking that he looks a bit like that man from that Great Baking Off show? It's his hands. I love his hands. This has ruined the Great British Bake Off for me. It's no longer great. And more importantly, it's no longer British. I used to like it because it represented traditional values, like baking and not having an affair. I, for one, and his wife, for two, will never forgive him. And if she does, then, as a woman, I will not forgive her. It's his eyes and his hands. He could knead my dough balls, brackets tits, any day of the week. He is full of himself. He has a big head. The only thing bigger than his head is his ego. Doesn't having a big head mean having a big ego? In essence, you have just said the only thing bigger than his opinion of himself is his opinion of himself. Or did you mean that he has a physically large head? He does appear to have a physically large head. Well, that's just perfect, isn't it? One man has an affair and destroys his marriage, while I make a mistake in a comment about head size. And which one of us do you attack? Me. This section is for slagging off Paul Hollywood, not someone you've never met. I have dreams about him. Not sex dreams, just dreams. Although we do sometimes have sex in them. Modern Life is Goodish. Now, earlier on in the show, I was explaining how I happened to find myself logged in as a production company on the website StarNow, and that presented me with an almost irresistible opportunity to create a bit of mischief and mayhem. But you've got to have a conscience about things like this, haven't you? You've got to punch up and not down. I didn't want to mock the people who are signed up to StarNow. They're nice, decent people with normal hopes and dreams. The way I see it, there are a lot of people on this earth who would like to see their face on TV. That's a perfectly normal dream for people to have, and there are people who would like to see their name on TV. I get that. And most people on Earth certainly would like to make a bit more money. These are completely reasonable aspirations for people to have. If, with my newfound access to the site, I was to create an advert for a fake TV show that pretended to offer 1, 2, or all 3 of those opportunities, I would just be encouraging nice, normal people to apply for a thing that they would never get. And then I would be responsible for dashing those normal hopes and dreams on yet more rocks. I don't want to play that game. Instead, I decided to create an advert for a TV show that specifically offered none of those things so that nobody in their right mind would ever feel the draw to apply for it. The people I was trying to mess with weren't them. People I was trying to mess with were Liberty Bell. I wanted them, the production company, to find their own advert and panic about what on earth was going on. What show is it we're making? Who's making it? Who's paying for this? Who commissioned this? Are Channel 5 involved? What is going on? The fact that we were in the middle of a small contract dispute at the time is neither here nor there. Which is why my advert said this: kneecaps wanted for TV show. The Kneecap Recap is a new entertainment format. I had it all worked out. The format for my fictional television show, The Kneecap Recap, is that for half an hour, still photographs of unidentified kneecaps float across the screen while some easy listening music plays in the background to accompany them. That is it. No names, no money changes hands, nothing else happens for half an hour. This is the full wording of the advert, lady. Picture must be of kneecaps only. Don't go trying to sneak your face in there. I'm not going to fall for that one. And importantly, if you think your kneecaps have got what it takes, what does that even mean? What quality could a kneecap have that another doesn't? It just needs to exist, surely. So I've put that advert out there and I'm waiting for the office to descend into confusion and chaos. But nothing happens in the office. I get a message from StarNow saying, thank you very much, your advert is now live, but no one in the office seems to be reading the emails sent by StarNow to their company email address. But then it gets really weird. I start getting messages from people on StarNow saying things like this: I have kneecaps. She's in Australia, where for some reason this ad seemed to get a bit more traction. Here's another Australian woman who's replying to say, because I have the most beautiful kneecaps of the land. Men tended to respond differently, saying things like, I have the ugliest knees around. Anyway, here's another woman. She's 70 and she's from Manchester. She got in touch to say, I'm reliable, punctual and can take direction, plus I think I have nice kneecaps. And then she added, where do I send my pic of kneecaps? She knows you can't attach a picture to a message on StarNow. So she's essentially asking, is there an email address to which I can send a message attaching some pictures of my knees? And that presents a little moral dilemma right there, doesn't it? What is the point of me giving her my email address? I will just be encouraging a 70-year-old woman who, for reasons best known to herself, would like to see her knees on TV, to believe that her knees will be on TV. And that is just crushing her dreams. On the other hand, if I give her somebody else's email address, I am then arranging for a friend of mine to receive, out of the blue, with zero context whatsoever, an email from a 70-year-old woman attaching photographs of her knees. And whichever way you slice it, that is funny. So that's what I decided to do. It had to be someone with a Liberty Bell email address so that it would tie in with the advert. I had a quick look around the office. My eyes are lighted on a man called Jamie. He is the most deadpan man I have ever met in my life. His face never betrays any human emotion ever. I thought he is the perfect foil for this. I'm going to send her Jamie's email address, and then I'm going to spend the rest of the day looking at his face. And then, nothing. Nothing in his face, nothing in his eyes. I assumed at the time that she hadn't actually sent him the email. I now know differently. I will show you the subject of the email and then the content of the email. The subject was kneecaps. Content, here are my kneecaps as promised. Here are my kneecaps as promised. That's all, that's it. The only thing weirder than an email out of the blue saying, here are my kneecaps as promised, would be a parcel out of the blue saying, here are my kneecaps as promised. What's he supposed to make of that, for crying out loud? He must be replaying every conversation he's ever had for a clue. Of course, there was something else on the email. There were photographs. Prepare yourself, ladies and gentlemen, to see photos of a 70-year-old lady's knees. There they are. There's some knees, there's some knees, there's some knees, there's some knees. Very lovely knees, they are indeed. And for the knee connoisseurs, ladies and gentlemen, a bonus knee in the corner there. That arrived into Jamie's inbox, unrequested by him. He read it and then showed absolutely nothing on his face. And that wasn't the only one. I gave Jamie's email address to everyone who asked about the kneecap recap. And a fair few of them did indeed send him emails. This chap sent him an email with the subject, "Kneecaps wanted for TV show. Thank you for interest in my knees. I am attaching a photos of my knees. Thanks again, with this photo attached." There we go. You lot, you can't hide your reaction, and you knew it was bloody coming. Jamie, nothing. No hint that anything unusual or strange was going on for him. And it turns out there were lots of people who wanted to have their kneecaps on the kneecap recap. Lots of people were sending their knees in. No recognition, no fame, no money was on offer, and yet all of these people sent their knees in to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, it turns out that my programme idea, Kneecap Recap, has legs. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. But none of this was revealed in Jamie's face. I only found all of this out 3 or 4 days later. I was back in the office. I was in the little kitchenette area making a cup of tea. And Jamie popped in. I thought, this is my opportunity. If he's not going to crack, I have no choice but to crack. So I said, "Oh, do you fancy a cuppa, Jamie?" He said, "Yeah, I wouldn't mind." I said, "By the way, is there something up? You looked a little perturbed earlier." That was a lie. He hadn't. And he said, "You know what? Yeah. People have started sending me pictures of their knees." "Have they?" "Yeah. Oh, what's that about?" "I don't know. I'll show you. Come with me." He took me to his computer. He showed me all of the knees he'd received from strangers who want to be on the kneecap recap. And as he's talking me through the pictures, I'm thinking, you bugger. You absolute bugger. You knew it was me all along. There I was thinking this hadn't worked again. I'm wondering why. And the reason I knew I'd been had was because I recognised that pair of knees. Those knees, ladies and gentlemen, are Mrs. Gorman's knees. Now, that is either an incalculable coincidence, or what's actually happened is that Jamie has known what I was up to, played a deadpan game, and as he's been waiting for me to crack, he's gone onto Mrs. Gorman's Facebook, he's found our holiday photos, he's found a picture of her knees, he's bunged them in the gallery, and this is his way of going, ha 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 ha. Didn't fool me, knew it was you all along. Said to him, "Look, beautifully done, Jamie, well played, my friend, I salute you, I'm impressed, you win this time." He said, "What are you on about?" I said, "Well, those are Mrs. Gorman's knees." He went, "No, they're not." "Oh, they are. I recognise them. I know the beach. That's in Cyprus. I was there." He went, No, it's not. Look, I'll find the email that came from it. It came from a girl called Laura. And that makes no sense whatsoever. I go home that night. I'm making a bit of supper. I turn to Mrs. Gorman and say, "By the way, Mrs. Gorman, are you familiar with the website StarNow?" She said, "Yes, of course I am." Right? She works in telly. She's used it on a show before now. I said, "Have you ever used it yourself? Signed up as a punter, maybe?" She went, "No. Why would I do that? What do you mean?" I said, "I don't know. Have you ever sent anyone a picture of your knees, for example?" Why would I send a picture of my knees? Well, there's this TV show called the Kneecap Recap. There's a what? Well, it's not a real show. Well, what is it then? I made it up. Why did you do that? I can't remember. Someone sent in a picture of your knees. They did not. They did. I showed her the email that Jamie had forwarded to me. She's looking at that. She goes, "Those are my knees." I said, "I know they are." I said, "I think it's Jamie. I think Jamie went onto Facebook and found it in our holiday photo so that he could show you he knew it was me." "That can't be right," she said. "I mean, yes, that photo is on my Facebook, but because of my settings, that photo is only visible to 5 people on Earth, including you and me. So how the hell has this happened? I don't understand. But I've got Laura's email address. So I thought I'd send Laura an email. Using a fake name, obviously. "Hello, Laura. My name is... I am the producer of the Kneecap Recap. It has been brought to our attention at Kneecap Recap that you have sent us a picture of somebody else's knees. Here at the Kneecap Recap, we take this kind of knee fraud very seriously. Could you please tell us where you sourced this picture of the knees from? Yours sincerely, send." It took just 20 minutes. 20 minutes to get a reply from Laura. Subject, knee theft. Message, "I'm sorry. You're right, they're not my knees. I just Googled woman's knees, and it was the picture I liked most. Apologies. Obviously, I immediately Googled woman's knees, and sure enough, there they are, in 7th place. This makes no sense whatsoever to me. How has Google found this image when Mrs. Gorman's put it in a very private place on Facebook? And then I realised the only other place I put photos online is on a website called Flickr. It's a photography website that I use to back up my photos. I use it for photographs that I want to share, but if it's a photo of me or Mrs. Gorman or our son or our house or whatever, I keep it private so that it's not generally available. So, for example, that is a photo of me. I don't mind you seeing it, I just think it's a bit weird to put it out there as if I want the public to see it, so I keep it private, and that's why it has no views, no faves, and no comments. I scrolled back through Flickr looking for that holiday in 2012. I found the holiday. Something like 120 photos had been taken on that holiday. All of them were set as private, bar one. And obviously you already know which one. It was the knees there. It was a simple mistake on my part. By not clicking the mouse, and I meant to click the mouse to make it private, I had left it public by accident. But because of that, that photo has now been viewed by nearly 40,000 people. 40,000 people looking at my wife's knees in a photo that I have very helpfully titled Knees. But at least that mystery is solved. But not the bigger mystery. The bigger mystery here is surely, why had Laura done this? Think about exactly what was on offer here. There was no chance of putting your name on TV, not your face on TV, or any money in your pocket. The only thing on offer was to put your kneecaps on TV. I have to stretch my imagination to breaking point to find within it a person who thinks, finally, my moment. I want my knees to be on TV. And I want it so much, I'm going to send them a picture of somebody else's knees. What does this achieve? I sent another email to Laura saying, hello, Laura, it is me again from Kneecap Recap. Thank you very much for being so honest about where you found this picture of the knees. However, our broadcast partners and our lawyers are very concerned that other people might be trying to perpetrate the same sort of knee fraud. Therefore, we would very much like to understand your motivation. Can you please explain why you sent in a picture of somebody else's knees? I waited 3 hours for her reply, and this time, when it came, it was just a single sentence. It is, I would say, by some distance, my favourite ever single-sentence email. It reads as follows. I just didn't think my knees had got what it takes. Isn't that just about the bleakest thing you've ever heard in your life? So what have we learned this evening, ladies and gentlemen? Well, we've learned that when the most remarkable coincidence you have ever experienced in your life happens to you, you stretch everything you can to build a show around it. We've learned that in a world in which we are photographed more than ever before, we are also obsessed with image, even when it's just an image of our knees. People often tell us that we need to be careful online these days, that in the online world everything exists forever and anything can be found by anyone. But I think maybe that was always true. I mean, yes, it's true that Mrs. Gorman's knees ended up being in Google's image search. But in the days before I owned a computer, this was my Google image search, and the Christmas glums and what are you looking at and Leany Man all ended up in there through no fault of their own. But more importantly, I think we've learned that Mrs. Gorman has got top drawer knees. Look at that, 7th place. Don't tell me you're not my fantasy shack now, Mrs. Gorman. I do not see Megan Fox's knees on that page, do you? And yes, I would know, absolutely. Anyway, thanks for watching. Good night.